All right, so if you guys can see my screen then. So sorry for the delay, it's 10 minutes late already. Um so we'll be taking the second live coding session for today, and this will be the last live coding session for this stage. So if you guys have any question or anything, so you can ask your questions on the channel, and at any point in time while I'm going through the content of the live coding session, you can unmute yourself and stop me, and I'll be on hand to make sure that I answer any question that we have. So without wasting much of our time, so last live coding session, we we worked on we worked on a Git action to just see different aspects of Git action, running a Git action based on events. That's the pull request events and all of those kinds of stuff that can help with continuous integration. So for this live coding session, we won't actually be taking too much of our time. We'll just be showing a basic implementation of a reusable Git action. So reusable Git actions are actions that um, imagine in a sense where let's say for example in an organization, anytime anytime a new project is being done in a GitHub repo, there are some things that have to be done. Let's say the creation of the README, all of those kind of stuff, or there are some actions that need to be repeated. So it won't be it won't be wise to have to keep writing this action every time you create a repo. So understanding this aspect of the fact that even when we are coding in going away from system orchestration now to regular coding, you see the essence of reusable code. That's why we have modules, libraries, and packages that people are installing to use based on what other people have done. So realizing that this is an essential and integral aspect of coding that must not be left alone. So the creators of GitHub, then um, before it got sold up to Microsoft and stuff like that. So they were able to come up with an ideology where you can write a Git action for it to be reused by any other repo. So in this sense, when this Git action is written, all you just have to do is to understand how to use this action. And if you're able to understand how to use this action, then you can call that action at any point in time with any other repo. So giving you a very simple use case for which we are using it in our organization here where I'm working. So we have, for example, to for example, to start a new deployment cycle, we have to spin up EKS clusters, and these EKS clusters have to be they have to be you have to spin up an EKS cluster and a VPC. So after spinning up those EKS clusters and VPCs, we also want it to be automated. So the way we do it now is that rather than having to write a Git action that will always create an EKS cluster every that I will have to keep writing the Git action to create the EKS cluster. We did it in such a way that we made it a reusable action, in the sense that so anytime in the organization that we want to work on a new project where we need to spin up an EKS cluster, we don't have to rewrite the action to spin up the EKS cluster. All we just have to do is to just rewrite a simple action that will call the previous action that we have written, and all we just have to do is to pass the name and the necessary credentials to create the EKS cluster, and this will create the new EKS cluster based on what we have passed in. So imagine if I had to keep rewriting code every time just to create an EKS cluster, that would not be wise. So um, enough talking, and let's start writing. The For today we'll be working on. So before I do that, I think I showed to you guys the last time the GitHub action docs. So everything you need for the GitHub action docs, you can find it here. So this is docs.github.com. English actions. So everything you need about the Git actions, you can find it here, and you will be able to use it for anything it is that you want to use. And you'll be able to utilize this documentation to work on any project at all for Git action that you want to work on. So um this is managing, and so just to see creating actions. So there's a part here where they say reusable actions, quick starts, then GitHub. So I'm trying to see. Okay, let me go back here to the main page. So this is the main page.
Chicken. Yeah.
So this is the main page, and I'm trying to see the part of creating actions, about custom actions. So let me see. So this part exactly, publishing actions in GitHub Marketplace. So there is a marketplace where you can see where a lot of people create actions that they think that people are going to need. So, and I'll show us one of the most popular one very soon. So if we click on this creating actions pass, so about custom actions, sharing work exactly. So this is creating a composite action. So in this guide, you learn the basis of component action. So when you want to create a new action that is composite, exactly, you can see this is the syntax we need. So you need to name the action, action.yaml, the name, the description, the input for that action, if there are going to be any output, the output for that action, and then what? The runs. One thing I want us to notice is that when you are defining the run now, we are not using run on. Now we are using runs, and this run on is not using a what? Is not using an operating system like when we are working on a normal action. This one is what? Is using composite. So when we use the using composite as the key for the runs, we are letting GitHub know that this action are actions that are what? That are going to be reused. So these are type of action, composite actions, Docker container, JavaScript actions, blah blah blah, and none of those kind of stuff. So coming back here, so what I'll do is we'll be working with the last repo, but to do that we need to create a new repo. So let me come here and create a new repo. So this will be the new repo, and we'll call the new repo reusable action. So this is the reusable action repo. So all of this as usual, then let's create the repository. So after creating the repository, let me go. So let me share this page instead. So let me share my Visual Studio Code so we can. Let me just even share my entire screen. So I'm sharing my entire screen now. So if we go back, sorry. So if we go back here, so this is the GitHub action. So this is the stuff. So let me exit this for now and start up a new folder. Okay, so now exactly. So let me open this in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let me just close all of this and let me close this. So I'll open the terminal now. So git clone. Let me pick up the URL, HTTPS exactly. So cloning is already, so it has cloned into reusable action. So in the reusable action, so your action that is going to create, that is going to contain your that is going to contain your action. So let's just even start from the let's start. So let's create an action. So let's create this. Let me call this action one. So this is a folder. Sorry, okay, that's a mistake. I wanted this to be a folder. So this is a folder, action 1 folder. Okay, so in the action 1 folder, we'll now have a file called action.yaml. Okay, so in action.yaml, so let's follow the syntax that we just saw online in the custom actions. Okay, let me just go back. So we know we are following the correct syntax exactly. So let's call this, the name of this is going to be first reusable action. Okay, so that's the name. The description, let me put this in quotes. So the description, let me see the reusable. Okay, reusable action. So the description is going to be, okay, I think this is more fit as a description. So let me call this action 1. So after defining the description, the next thing is the inputs. So it's not necessary, but most times for reusable actions, because you want it to be reusable. So if they are going to be reusable, that means they have to be dynamic. It's not static. Or in there are some cases where it will be static, but most times it has to be dynamic. So if it is dynamic, then it needs to take an input, and for those inputs, it will return what? Its output. So the inputs. So the first input, let's say this is input 1. Okay, and for the input 1, we are going to put the what? The description. So this is the first input of the reusable action. Then that's input 1. So is it going to be required? So you can say if it's going to be required or not. So if we say required is true, and that means if this input 1 is not provided, then our action will return a what? An error. So let's give it another input. Let's call this input 2. So the description of this one is going to be the second input of the reusable action. Okay, so I'm not going to make this one required. So required, this one is going to be false. So a good practice is when something is required, then you can have a default value. So you can see here that since this required here is true, then they gave it a what? A default value. So if you are going to give this one a default value, so the default value, since it's going to be required, let us give it the, okay, we use it, or first inputs. Okay, so after you have defined the input, then you can decide to define output. But for this demo, we will not be defining output. So after the output, then you can say the runs. So these are the runs. These are the steps that are going to be run in this what? In this action. So using is what are going to be specifying composite. So since we are specifying composite, then we are saying that okay, this is an action that can be reused. So we now have to now start defining the what? Steps. So the name of this step is going to be what? Printing the first printing the first inputs. Okay. So what this is going to do, but one thing we should note now is that previously when we were working on actions. For example, in this git action ls, in this workflow file, for example, you can see that in this workflow file, when we are saying a run, we just say run and we type in the command. But when in a reusable action, going with the fact that you know that okay, it's possible that whatever action, the base action that is going to be calling this action might be running on any other OS. You need to specify what kind of command line tool you want to use to run this action. If you get what I'm trying to say. So you need to specify a key that is called shell. So for the shell option, you have either bash or PowerShell. So you have bash, PowerShell, CMD, and I think there are 4 different ones that you can call. But the most popular are bash and PowerShell. So if you know that you want to, for example, the beautiful thing about Git action is that even if the OS that the action is a Linux OS, you can still use the PowerShell. Even if the OS is a Windows OS, you can still use the bash. You get. All you just have to ensure is that for any shell that you decide to use, you have to ensure that whatever code you are going to be writing conforms to the accepted standard of that scripting tool. So for this one, I'll be using bash, and then I'll use run. So if I use run and I'll say echo, then so I want to echo the first input is, so I'll not get the input using the input context. I think I said this the last time, input one context. So I'm going to save this. So after saving this, let's just start as the basis. So I'm going to add this git add dot git commit am the first reusable action, then git push. So if this pushes successfully, so I don't know what's happening, so maybe it's a network stuff, but let's just wait for this to push successfully. Okay, that's yes, a network issue. So let me run the git push again. Can you guys still hear me? Let me just confirm it's not general.
Yes. I think the network is reached.
Yes, the network is bad. It's been an issue since yesterday. I apologize for that. So let me git push origin. Oh, exactly. So that has gone successfully and the network has gone through. So now that has gone through, so if we go to Google Chrome and check our usable action, so if we refresh this page, we should see this in that page successfully. Okay, but the network is actually seeming very bad, but we are almost done. So now we have created the composite action. So what we just have to do exactly, so now we use the action. So we can see that we have action 1 and then that's that on that. So now what I'm now going to do is in that same, so let me just open a new PowerShell. Okay, so I'm going to cd to git action lcs and do. Okay, cd to dot github slash workflows. Okay, so this is where our workflow 1 is. So this is our workflow 1. So you can remember that this is the workflow that we used in our previous. Can remember that this is the workflow that we used in our previous in our previous live coding session. So now, what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to add a new job. I'm going to call this job 3. So job 3, and what job 3 is going to be doing is that job 3 will run on what? So this one will always run. So runs on Ubuntu latest. Ubuntu latest. So the steps here. So let's call the name of this step is going to be what? Calling. There's not enough. Okay. So the name of this step is going to be calling the reusable action. Okay. So then, so what is going to do what? So to call a reusable action, what you need to use is you need to use the width. So when you say the width is saying that you want to be what? You want to the action that you want to use to what? To run this repository. So I'm just going to come here. So you can just come here and pick the what? Pick the repository name. So this is GitHub reusable action. So github.com/reusable action/action1 at main. Oh, okay. So I think there's an issue somewhere. Let me just come here. So this runs. So testing out exactly. So you can see that you use it with actions slash. So okay, the keyword I was meant to use is the uses keyword. So it is the uses keyword that specifies. Is the uses keyword that specifies the action that we want to use. So what we now have to do is so instead of width here, this is going to be uses. So uses. Okay, so I have to like make this align exactly. So it uses whoadenio.com. So you can skip the GitHub. So this uses whoadenio slash action at main, and you can see it here. So for every action you are going to be calling, you need to specify. So if your action has been published, if you go on further to read when you publish an action, that's when you publish an action, you have to version it. But as at the point where your action has not been published, you have to do what? You have to specify the what? You have to specify the branch that contains the actual action that you want to use. So after doing this, now I'm now going to call the width. So width. So what are the input parameters that we define then? So input 1. Input 1 is equal to what? Input from color. Okay. And then input 2. But we can decide to leave input 2 for now because we are not using input 2 at all in our code. So this input from color. Okay. So now, and then that should be all. So I'm going to save this now. And then, but before I push this, I want us to go back to this repo. So after you create a usable action that you know that you want it to be used by other actions, in the repository that contains the action, you need to what? You need to specify that this action, every action in this repository can be reused. And to do that, you go to the settings of the GitHub page. So from the settings of the GitHub page, you click on this what? You click on actions, general. So when you click on action general, you can see. So these are the different. So allow all actions and reusable workflows. Yes. Workflow permission, read and write content. Allow to. Okay. So allow all actions and what reusable workflows. So that's the first one. So I think somewhere here also. Okay. So in the actions, in the general, in the runners, but we don't do anything in the runners. So in the general, for the action, because it is also a public repo, that's why there are not more of these options. But most times when the repo is a private option, this option is not on allow. It's most likely you disable the actions or it's on deny. So you need to come to what? So you need to be able to do what? You need to come and set the workflow permissions to allow what? To allow actions. So this is the action permissions, reusable actions and stuff. So that's the so once this is on allow, so we know that we're on the right track. So most times you have to ensure that the setting is correct, but you most likely see it when the GitHub action is what is private. So going back to my Visual Studio Code, so I've saved this. So I'm going to do a git add. I'm going to git commit am. So call the reusable action. Okay, and then git push. So this is pushing. So this has been pushed to dev already. So this workflow will not run because it only works when there's a what? A pull request, branches, or if we run it manually. So let us now go to our action. So this is the reusable action. So let's come back to our repositories. And now let us click on this repository. So we're going to click on the action aspects. Okay, so the first action is what we want to run. So I'm going to run the workflow. So the dev branch. So all of these are just seconds. So let us skip step 2 just to make it faster. And now let us click on the run workflow. Okay. So this workflow is running already. So let me see if I have. So our job 3. So unexpected value steps. So nothing is easy when you do it the first time. You just have to ensure. So it is saying that there's an issue. And the issue here is that, so at least we can see that our reusable workflow is calling what? Is calling the reusable action. So this is what? This is correct. But in line 17 column 3, unexpected value what? Steps. So let me go here. So it says one using composite. So let me confirm that I have the steps correctly. So once, so that's steps. Oh, it's composite, exactly. Using composite steps. Oh, I see. So this is a grammatical error. This should be steps, STEPS. So I'll save this. So after saving this, git add, then git commit, typo fix. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to do git add, git commit, am, typo fix, exactly, then git push. So this has done successfully. So now on this page, so let me go back to our own and let me run this job that failed. Okay, so it is loading already. Well, as usual, it's taking some time due to the network. But you can see now that our job 3 has run what successfully. So this is the step that called the reusable action. And in calling the reusable action, you see what did this do? So this did what? It went to this repository from this user. So the user is what name on my repo, reusable action slash action one. So you need to specify where this action is, and it is in the main. So I called it with mp1. So you can see run echo. The first input is input from caller, which is what we passed in as the input to this place. And you can see that it's printed it out. The first input is input from caller. So this is how people leverage on the power of actions to reuse actions in context where you don't have to keep rewriting that action for the same for the same process. So going to GitHub Actions Marketplace. So just want to see. So this is GitHub Actions. So this is GitHub Action Marketplace. So there are a lot of different actions that have been written, you see, to improve your workflow for that different people have written over the years. So it's just like saying that you're using a package. So just as the way you can pip install a Python package, you can do different things. These are different actions that people have written over the years to to ensure that one can and you can see there are the free actions. There are actions that are free, there are those that are paid, but most times what you need for the free actions are actually enough for whatever it is that you require. So one of the popular actions that I want to show us is the checkout action. Git action checkout. So this is the checkout action. So this checkout action is very it's popularly used because it was created by GitHub to be able um to bring other repositories into your into the action that you're running. So when you use the GitHub checkout action, you're able to like call other repositories. So you can see anytime when an action is created, you most likely have to follow all of this license stuff. Then you need to write a readme that specifies how this action is used. So this action was written by GitHub, and you can see this is how it is used. So what's this action for? This action checks out your repository under the GitHub workspace so your workflow can access it. So let's say you have a code in another repository apart from these two repositories that we have currently, and you want to bring out the code from that repository, you can just use this checkout action to access that GitHub action. And if it's a private option, all you just have to do is specify the repository and reference is the branch. Specify the repository and specify the branch, and you'll be able to access this specific action. So there are a lot of different actions that have been created by GitHub. Apart from the checkout action, another one is the upload artifact action. Upload artifact action, GitHub. So you can see it, upload artifact action. So this upload artifact action is very useful when you are working with files. So when you are working with files and you want to use the upload artifact action is what you use to transfer files between different actions. So when your workflow is running, you can use the upload artifact. You can see this upload artifact from your workflow, allowing you to share data between jobs and store data once a workflow is complete. So once a workflow is complete, even let's say you have a workflow where you created a new file, for example, or you have a workflow where you made edits to files that are in your GitHub repository. So for you to update your GitHub repository with those files, you can use this upload artifact to upload those new files that you have created, upload them. So it is always stored, I think, for a few days or something before it gets deleted. And then the counterpart of upload artifact is download artifact. So for whatever it is that you uploaded, you have to do what? You have to download it. So after you use the upload artifacts action, after you use the upload artifact, what you need to do what you need to do now is to download it. So immediately you've uploaded it. So let's say in one job you created some files that you want to share. All you just have to do is upload the artifact from that job, and in the next job that's going to use that file, you just download that artifact from that same job. So that will be the end of today's live coding session. So it is not really short, because no matter what it is I try to do, we can't really get, because going into more complex things, we'll actually go into something more complex in the next stage. We'll use GitHub Actions to containerize and publish a web app. So we'll first introduce ourselves to Dockers, manipulating Dockers. Then from there, we'll now integrate Dockers into into GitHub Action, where we'll use GitHub Action to, immediately we make a push to the repository, it will automatically package that container and push it to Docker Hub. So the container that is pushed into Docker Hub will also try to do something that will do an automatic deploy. So you guys also you see something of that nature in this in this in the tag along project for this stage. We'll implement that in our next live coding session for next session, because I want to introduce Docker first before I now start showcasing using using GitHub Actions for containerization together. So basically, everything about actions, that's it. All you just have to do is you need to be able to ensure that you're able to work with this documentation. So once you have this documentation, you are good to start creating your action for anything it is that you want to think about. So even one Python code, for example, let's say let me just out of the top of my head now, one Python code in GitHub Actions. So if I click on this now, you'll see that how to see this is the marketplace action. So in the marketplace, there's an action called run Python script. So you just have to do is that the jobs. So you need this action. So this action is used to set up Python. So once you use this action to set up Python in your GitHub runner, then all you just have to do is to use this guy's action to to script import os printf. So this is the script that are going to use to run the Python script. So with this guy is giving you a way to write Python code even inside your inside your GitHub action. So this is something that I created on his own. But what I wanted to show us is these actions that was created. Any action that you see that starts with actions, that means it was created by It was created by GitHub themselves. So anyone that starts with a name of a person, so that's the name of the owner of the action. So GitHub created an action that allows people to use this to set up Python on your on your runner, because your runner is like anytime you initiate a new runner, that means you have a new system. It's just like you buying a system from scratch. So once you buy that system from scratch, all you have to do is to you now have to set up the things you need. So apart from Python, you can set up Node.js on your runner. You can set up Terraform on your runner. You can set up Kubernetes on your runner. You can set up AWS command line on your runner. Almost anything at all. And GitHub also even gives the opportunity for you to have custom runners. So custom runners are containerized package that you upload your container somewhere and you install all of the tools you need on your runner. So you don't even have to start using custom actions again, because you now have total control over the tools that are contained in that your container. So in our next stage, when we start talking about containerization, you will understand what we mean by you having a bare system of a container that you can use for whatever it is that you want to do. So with that, we have come to the end of today's live coding session. So are there any questions?
I have a question.
All right, I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you go over quickly the aspects where that's using uses and then adding the version? I think you made mention of that. For the first instance, that would be using the version, the reusing the
The
action.
action that we
Then
created, exactly.
yes. So can you like
Okay.
go over that aspect, please?
Yeah, all right. So as I was saying, so after we created the action here, so in this workflow, so this is just me reusing the workflow we created the last time. You can start a new workflow from the beginning and do whatever it is you want to do. But when you want to call a reusable action, so just as if you are running a new action, a new job, you just start listing the steps. But what you have to do is after you name this step, you need to use this keyword uses. So the
Okay.
keyword uses is where you specify what reusable action it is that you want to use. You get? So with these uses, I'm specifying that I want to use what a reusable action that we created ourselves. So let's say, for example, I wanted to use the reusable action created by Google themselves. For example, if I come here in this upload artifact, for example, you see this. So in these steps now, what is it using? It is using the what? These actions and checkouts created by Google, sorry, created by GitHub. So the uses
Yours
keyword,
frozen.
sorry, my screen
I
is frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, let me just switch from that. Let me switch to window sharing, entire screen, sorry. So with this, so what I was trying to say is that the uses keyword is where you specify the actual reusable action that you want to use. So if I go to this example by GitHub, you can see that when they want to use this upload artifact action, they use the uses keyword, and then they specify that this is the upload artifact action, and then you use the with keyword to specify all of the inputs that can go into that action. So if you put a keyword that is not defined in the action, you will have an error. But the uses keyword is what you use to specify that, okay, for this step, I'm going to be using an action that was not created in this workflow, but it is structured in a way that it is reusable. So that's what the uses keyword here is doing. So for every action that you see that you're trying to reuse another action, the keyword, if I come here, see an example. So the keyword that they use is uses, and then you specify the actions. So what I was saying about version is that when you create an action, you have the option to publish it. So if you publish the action, for every publish you do, there's a version attached to it. So your first publishing is attached at V1, that's version 1. Your second will be attached V2. Your second will be attached V3. So the steps to publish your action, you can check it out on the actions page, publishing your action to GitHub Marketplace. You can check it out. But for the meantime, when your action has not been published yet and you want to use it, instead of specifying a version, you have to specify the branch that action is contained in. So that's why you see that instead of saying V1 or V2 here, I'm using at main, because the action, when I created it on the main branch. That is what this here is trying to say for version. But if peradventure I had published that action to the marketplace, then instead of using at main here, I'd have used at V1 or at V2 or at whatever version it was currently at that time. Is that okay?
Yes, that makes sense.
All right, no problem. So with that, we have come to the end of today's live coding session. As usual, you guys should participate in your Premier project and try as much as possible to be active, because only active participants will move from stage C to stage D. So try as much to participate and ensure that you partake in delivering a wonderful project with your team. So any further questions can be directed to us on either on the Slack through the Ask Amoye channel, or you can send a mail to us at help@amoye.io. So goodbye for now and see you guys another time.